Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton at Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. I want to also add Pakistan. We love you in Canada, the Big C tribe. In Africa also, there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful October the 2nd, 2019, Ground of Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, we're sweltering in a heat wave down here in the south, and then since hockey has started up in Canada, I was wondering if they might be able to ship us a little ice to cool us down and put it in our drink.
Yeah, the shaved ice. Would you really drink from a drink that had ice that was carved up by hockey blades? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I think we have to go through a little decontamination on some of the things that these hockey players due to that ice when they're out there. But, I mean, we're having record heat down here in the south to go along with some record-setting football scores in college, Charlton.
Yeah, it's all fair in love and war, and we love this time of year. Baseball, swinging the bat. My goodness, history's being made in Oakland, whether you win or lose. WNBA is also going strong. NBA basketball, a lot of good boys already practicing their three-point shots, and we know football's like a year-round business, Big C. It's all fair in love and war. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. I want to say you can download the #1 sports app in the universe on iHeartRadio podcast. Just go to Big C Sports Podcast. You can also follow Big C Sports, brought to you by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate our sponsors for the support. Big C, we have this National Suicide Hotline, and people need to just ask. You got to always ask for help, even if you don't think you need it. Ask just to get a checkup. You can call 800-273-8255, 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. Not just for military veterans, but for anybody needing help. Big C, why is it so important to you?
Well, Charlton, we live in a country where everyone is perceived to be strong and not to show weakness and vulnerability.
Yeah.
And that leads to so many horrific events, in lifetimes of people in America. People who have gone to war, people think that they're strong, brave, and courage because they've gone to war, but not recognizing the problems and the horrific lives that they had to leave while they're in the battlefields, Charlton.
Yeah.
And when they come back to America, Charlton, those are the most vulnerable people they are. They need assistance all the time.
Yeah.
They need people to talk to, people to reassure them that their life is of value and what they did, it doesn't go unrecognized.
No.
So we turn our backs on so many veterans in this country, Charlton, and adolescents and young people also, is because we're in too much of a I got to do these things for me now generation in America.
Yeah.
And these people who are struggling with mental and social and even health issues, Charlton, don't have somebody that they can lean on to talk to that even recognizes the troubles that they're going through.
Yeah.
So the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is there. And, I mean, we should not hesitate at that as American citizens to give out this number. Even if you think that somebody is doing okay, write it on the wall. I mean, so many people in bathrooms scribble on the walls and put things up and other phone numbers.
Yep.
Put up the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number. They do it in schools. They write on walls. They put graffiti up all over America.
Yeah.
Write down the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number. So if someone in passing may look at this number and say, hey, I could use that.
That's a good point.
I could use somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
That I need somebody to lean on, to listen to my problems and not be judgmental of me.
Yep.
So this National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, is there to help save lives. It will save lives. We just have to be prescient enough as human beings in America to give it out.
That's so important. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. Just to touch on that, a lot of times people don't understand when they're bullying somebody And it's not just for veterans or even people in high school, elementary school even. There's something that happened at a football game. It was all over the media. North Carolina athletic director Bubba Cunningham apologized for jokes made on the video board at the expense of Clemson fans during the Tigers' 21-20 win Saturday. And when you think about it, there's so many times where you don't know if someone's on their last rope. You just don't know. Sometimes people have gone through things, and there's a new thing called bully chatting. And you can do it through electronic media, whether it's texting somebody or you could defame someone's character on a video board. Well, even though people don't think about it, the athletic director, North Carolina, they did it right. Because we take bullying and it's supposed to be where it's just fun, we're just having fun at somebody's expense. But it may not seem like a big thing, but some people, they bet money on these games. Some people, they lose money. They lose a lot of things. But to have them come out and say that's not tolerated, I think that's a good act, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it is. It's a remarkable thing to take responsibility for an embarrassing moment. And when you look at bullying comes in all forms.
It does, yeah.
You never know if someone is embarrassed in a situation like that on a grand stage in front of thousands of people,
yeah,
what they may think about themselves later on and whatever, plight they might want to deal with in their life.
Yeah.
So as we look at situations like this, Charlton, that no one is above being bullied.
No.
And no one is too big not to bully somebody, Charlton. And it's
I think we're having a little bit of issue with the microphone, Big C. We'll clear it up in just a second. Go right ahead,
Be
Big C.
considerate of others at all times.
Yeah, that's so important. Having a little bit of static, but we'll work it out with all the weather going on. I do want to say tonight is a big night in Northern California. And I kind of feel, Oakland is something else. The Oakland port is one of the major shipping ports in the world, Big C. Oakland, Long Beach. A lot of goods and services that come into the entire West Coast. We've heard of Long Beach Harbor and the Oakland ports. So that means a lot of people in Oakland, they fed their families by going to work at the docks. A lot of the businesses and the homeowners that went to work and sent their kids to school, because the jobs were there. And we know a lot of things have left because of industrialization. Computers do the work now that manual labor used to do. But tonight, the baseball crowd at Oakland is amazing. It may only be a one-time event. Hopefully they win and go on to advance to play Houston. But I want to get your thoughts. When's the last time, Big C, you ever heard of 3 professional sports teams all winning championships, but then 2 leave in the same year? Golden State's now going to be in San Francisco, and the Raiders are going to Las Vegas, and most likely the A's will be the only playoff hope for the East Bay. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, they haven't all occurred in one year before, but it has happened when you think about it. So many cities that have lost teams. If you look at the city of St. Louis, the city of St. Louis has probably lost more professional organizations than anybody could ever imagine, Charlton. You think about the St. Louis Hawks, who are now the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah.
You think about the St. Louis Rams, which are now the Atlanta Rams. You think about the St. Louis Cardinals, who are now the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
And I believe it was the St. Louis Browns that were there before they went to Cleveland.
Yeah.
So this is the city that's lost a host of professional organizations. I understand the hardship that the Bay Area is going to go through now economically, Charlton, because you lose so many sports franchises that were an economic base for the community.
Yeah.
That's what people really don't understand, the plight of the locals that are left behind.
Yeah.
Yes, the billionaire owners can uproot anytime they want and go to the next newest dig that somebody offer them, just like leaving the old girlfriend, going to a new girlfriend. That's basically what it's like, because you haven't married that city that you're going to. We've seen all these franchises that have moved in the past decided to go someplace else when somebody else wanted to date them, Charlton.
Yeah.
But when you look at the backdrop of those people that are left behind, we talk about the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that people will sit there and consider that, Charlton. What I am saying is that you have to look at the economic crisis that people have put their children through school. They have paid their mortgages based on that surrounding area of that Coliseum area there in Oakland where the A's, the Raiders, and the Warriors have played.
Yeah.
You think about people who've had set up concessions outside those venues that have paid their rent, Charlton, paid their mortgage. They, utilize their yards for parking lots, Charlton, because people don't want to pay the absorbent price at the
That's
stadium.
right.
So they'll park a couple of blocks away in someone's yard and utilize that. And so these people have counted on that, selling food outside, setting up vendors, whether it's barbecue or whatever kind of things that they want to set up where people going into the stadium
Yep.
can get an inexpensive meal.
Yeah.
So when you think about the economic impact, beyond just the teams leaving that have won championships, that's what I look at most of all. I mean, yes, the A's have won, I believe, 4 World Series playing in that facility.
Yeah.
The Oakland Raiders have at least 2 championships, I believe,
Yeah.
playing there in Oakland in 77 and 80. I believe they won Super Bowls.
That's right.
At that time. The Golden State Warriors, we've seen the wealth of titles. They've won 4 titles in that area also, Charlton.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, it's always good to look at what a team has done professionally. All those guys that are playing sports are millionaires. All the Raiders, all the A's, all of the Warriors, they're millionaires. So they can move to any place that a team relocates to, find a home, and buy it and live comfortably. They're not going to worry about where they are. It's the people that they leave behind.
Yeah.
The huge gap economically within the community that those people won't have an ability to make up for, Charlton, because those facilities won't be utilized any longer, not for those sporting events that brought in huge dollars.
Well, Oakland, and that's very well said, Big C. Oakland, like a lot of major cities, is being heavily gentrified. Sometimes you don't even notice a large presence of African Americans because the housing is so expensive. Companies come in and buy up blocks of properties, and they rebuild in condominiums and single-family residents, and it just prices people out who've been there for many years. If you look at some of the teams right now, we talked about the Raiders, the Oakland A's, still going to be in Oakland, but they're moving further north where there's more money, etc., near Jack London Square. Also, their Golden State Warriors, they're in San Francisco now. They'll be playing on Friday. Oakland had the Roots, okay? The Golden Seals, a hockey team. CD USA, Oakland Oaks, they've had them as a basketball team. The Oakland Skates, the East Bay Lumberjacks, the Oakland Bansheers, the Oakland Buccaneers, the Golden Gate Gales, the Oakland Panthers, and we've heard of the San Francisco Seals that also would play games at the Coliseum. I remember going as a young boy to the Coliseum, and I saw Luther Vandross perform there. I saw the great Prince perform there in Oakland, Big C. I've seen a lot of entertainers that were in Oakland. So that great arena that has hosted football and baseball, I think they used to have a team called the Oakland Invaders in that football league that lasted a cup of coffee, Big C. I think the USFL. But what I know that has not changed is that Oakland is a city of great pride. Spent a lot of time growing up in Oakland as a young boy, spending time there with my grandparents, and just seeing things change and seeing how much people love the A's tonight. I hope it's not the last night, but it's amazing when you think about how many people can leave and exit at one time. And I know it's happened, like you mentioned, other great cities. But I want to get your thoughts from a guy in the South where everybody seems to be building new everything. We have NHL moving to the South. We have new football stadiums, new baseball stadiums. What do you see? We talked about Porter's yesterday, service industry. Oakland's big on service. What do you see being the solution when a lot more jobs leave, when, well, the Golden State's gone, and when the Raiders leave? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, there's no replenishing of jobs from professional organizations, Charlton.
Yeah.
Those jobs are not normal jobs, so it's not like you're going to bring something in
Right.
to replace those. I mean, I always hear administration talking about the job, increases every month in the United States. There was a company yesterday, and my daughter shops there, Forever 21, that filed for Chapter 11.
Yeah,
They're going to close up over 200 stores in the U.S. So
Wow.
I don't know how you're creating jobs when we have companies filing bankruptcy and closing up. You have professional organizations leaving cities, Charlton, and leaving a huge hole in the economic vice of those cities.
Yeah.
And so when these organization moves, we only look at the players. We only look at the coaches.
Yeah.
There's thousands of people that rely on these organizations when they're in cities.
Yeah.
What the South has done, Charlton, when you look at all the cities in the South, they have rebuilt within their own surroundings.
Yeah.
They have not let teams leave the area. I mean, the Bay Area, when you think about it, they built a new stadium down in Los Angeles to house two teams. And as you look at the situation in the Bay Area, the San Francisco 49ers, I believe they moved to Santa Clara. I often wonder why couldn't the 49ers and the Raiders share a facility down there, Charlton? They're right across the bay from each other. I think maybe 10, 15 miles apart, those two cities. Just like when you look at the Chargers and the Rams. They're going to share digs down in Los Angeles. They're within a close proximity of each other. Look at the great state of New York, and they don't even have a stadium, Charlton. The Jets and the Giants both play over in New Jersey in Meadowlands, another state away. So if teams and owners weren't selfish, they could have worked this out in the Bay Area and put in a joint stadium. It's not like the Niners and the Raiders always play on the same day at home, and they would have made that where each one of them would have, fluctuated weekends there. So this comes down to the owners and what the owners want personally, Charlton, in building a stadium. So when the 49ers built that stadium in Santa Clara a couple of years ago and left San Francisco, they understood the economic plight of the community that had been around Candlesticks Park ever since the Giants had gone there in the early 60s. And then the 49ers adapted that as their home stadium. So when you look at it, do owners care about communities? No, Charlton. No. They go to the next community that's going to give them the most money. It's all about deep pockets.
It's a lot like you mentioned about dating, how people date who they want to date, speed dating, where people go on these internet sites and they meet people they don't even know, that always put on their best profile. And just like buying a used car, that check engine light, they learn to turn off the check engine light, and then it comes on after you date it for a couple of weeks. And it's the same thing with teams. They always want to leave for something that appears pretty, but at the end of the day, it's always looking for something new too. And it seems like owners are the same. So I want to just say, for the city of Oakland, and because my grandparents were there, grandfather owned business, dad owned business there, and as a little boy, sometimes you don't miss up until it's gone, because you can assume it's always going to be there. Every day is a gift. The great Vince Scully talked about, we're all day to day, Big C. But for the people of Oakland, I remember just going to games at the Coliseum, and I know that the A's are the last hope for the people in the East Bay, at least that region. They're going to be moving further north. I was in San Francisco just the other day, in Candlestick Park. It's just rubbish. Would you believe they still left up some of the signs that say exit here, exit there at Candlestick Park? They're torn and tattered. They didn't even have the decency to take those down. It's as if they imploded the stadium or tore it down piece by piece, but they still left us some of the signs. It's not even dignified enough to keep them as a momentum, as a monument. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, replacing signs is going to cost the state or the city money, so they understood where the location of the stadium was. I think everybody would know by now that stadium is gone, but that's another debt that would have to go to the taxpayers, Charlton, if they have to redo those signs. City's not going to do that for free. Somebody has to absorb the cost.
Well, Hunter's Point, they're saying good witness. They're down in the Silicon Valley now. So I want to look at tonight's game. It's really, we talked about it before, it may be the only time that, you won't see it anymore, because the last time the Raiders played the Chiefs there, they still had the baseball infield, and players hate going from grass to dirt. I'm sure you can attest to that, Big C. So if the A's get knocked out tonight, you'll never see a football field at the Coliseum with the dirt infield. If the A's win and get a chance to knock off Houston, then maybe we'll see that again. So that's also a thing of history. Tonight, the Oakland A's are 97-65. They're 6-4 in their last 10 games, Big C. The Tampa Bay Rays, they're 99-66. They're 7-3 in their last 10 games. It's a one-game play-in today in Oakland, and I know the winner goes on to Houston, so no matter who wins, they may not go much farther than Houston. But do you have a feeling that there's more or less pressure on the home team or the visiting team? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I don't think either one of these teams are feeling pressure. They know this is a one-game series. And, baseball is what baseball is. It comes down to pitching, how dominant you can be in this. When you look at both of these small market teams, and that's what they're considered in baseball, small market teams, they have low payrolls. So there was not much expected of either one of these teams at the start of the season. But as you look at both of these teams making the wild card game, Charlton, a one-game series, that's what it's all about. And the A's have been in this position before. When I think about the Rays, Charlton, coming across the country, I kind of think all the pressure is on the A's because they're at home. And they know that this is the last game in the history of the Coliseum for the Oakland A's if this doesn't pan out for them.
Yeah.
When you look at the Rays, everybody's always giving up on them because everybody downplays their stadium, talking about, it's an atrocity to the major leagues, even though they've been there over 20 years and they're still playing. And here it is, they've made the wild card playing in that facility.
Yeah.
But the A's, they're looking at this, Charlton, is like, we're the last stand for the city of Oakland.
Yeah.
We're the last organization, professional sports organization in the city of Oakland.
Yeah, they are.
After this year.
Yeah.
The Golden State Warriors have gone back home to San Francisco where they started out.
Yeah.
They were over there playing in the Cow Palace years ago
That's
in
right.
San Francisco before coming over to Oakland in the 70s.
Yeah.
The Oakland A's left, came back. Now they're leaving again for good. The Oakland A's are never coming back. I mean, Oakland Raiders are never coming back.
No.
To Oakland.
Nope.
So I look at the Oakland A's having all the pressure in the world on them, sitting there saying, we're the last thing that the fans in Oakland are going to have to cheer for after this year. Everybody else is going to desert this facility.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be here, so all this pressure is on the A's to deliver tonight.
And when you think about the payroll, you look at the Rays, they're 30th in Major League Baseball. Their payroll is only $63.1 million. Yet they were able to get in the playoffs. And you look at the A's, their payroll is $92.9 million in the playoffs. Now, Oakland, San Francisco area is number 4 as far as the country media market-wise. There's over 7 million people in the Bay Area. And the Tampa Bay area is about 2.7 million. So the Bay Area is almost 2.5 size, the size of Tampa area. But those small markets considered, Big C, it shows that money doesn't buy everything. Sometimes it's about who wins. So whoever wins tonight, congratulations, and I'm sure they'll have fun when they play Houston. I want to go back to last night's game, the National League wildcard game, and I want to get Big C's thoughts on what happened, because the Brewers, they had the lead until I think the last 9 minutes of the game, and they succumbed 4-3 to the Nationals. They had 7 hits versus 5, and you think about it. Strasburg was doing his thing last night, Big C, but when you have the pressure that was put on the backs of Washington, it's their first series that they've won since coming from Montreal, and it was just a great game and a sea of red. It was really impressive to see that comeback. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it was an amazing game last night by the Nationals, Charlton. They put their ace on the mound, Matt Scherzer. Matt Scherzer gave up an opening game walk, Charlton, to the leadoff batter.
Yeah.
Subsequently, he gave up 2 home runs in the next 3 innings.
Yep.
To put Washington in a hole. They brought in Steven Strasburg out of the pen, Charlton, the starting pitcher, to relieve Scherzer in that game. But Miguel Soto, who hit a game-winning double, Charlton, that drove in 3 runs to put the Nationals in the lead for good. And this is what you talk about, having clinch hitters in baseball.
Yeah.
Miguel Soto is going to be a free agent at the end of this year, may not be back with the Nationals, Charlton, because he feels that he's delivered more than Bryce Harper did, and they're not offering him the money that they offered Bryce Harper prior to him signing with Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But this is what one-game series are all about, Charlton. Epic games are the nail-biters, come down to 1 run, deciding the game, and that's what you like. You like to see that instead of a blowout.
Yeah.
Matt Scherzer, most likely he'll be 1 or 2 in the Cy Young voting for the National League, but
definitely.
Last night he was pedestrian, giving up the 2 home runs, putting his team in a hole, but his teammates bailed him out. You'll always get the pitcher, get all the credit.
Yeah.
But Miguel Soto, Charlton, was the big bat last night for the Washington Nationals, giving them their first series win since they were in Montreal.
Yeah, Scherzer had 5 innings pitched, and he had 3 earned runs, 6 strikeouts, 77 total pitches, and Woodruff for the Brewers, he pitched 52 pitches, had 4 innings pitched, and he did everything until the last 9 minutes. It wasn't his fault that they dropped that game, but congratulations to the Nationals, and now they get to go on to Los Angeles. Big C, speaking of going on, and you talked about ice earlier. I don't know if are you really the kind of guy that would get ice off of a hockey stadium and put it in your drink? Is that what you were saying, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you got to get the ice before any of the skaters go out there and start skating around and spitting on the ice. It's clean at that point. But once they hit that ice, Charlton, anything goes, and a little sweat, little spit.
Yes.
I don't want that in my drink.
On Frozen Pond, the Ottawa, if you think about the Frozen Pond NHL preseason game tonight, Ottawa Senators at the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I guess they're finally finished celebrating what happened last year or earlier this year with the Raptors winning their first NBA championship and the only one for Canada. And then you have the Washington Capitals at the St. Louis Blues. I'm sure they're still partying from what happened last year, Big C knocking out Boston. Vancouver Canucks at the Edmonton Oilers. And then the San Jose Sharks are at the Las Vegas Knights, so you have some Southern comfort. You're feeling on NHL. It's preseason, but it's good to see it back on the ice. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, I looked at the game between St. Louis and Washington. You know, these are the last two Stanley Cup winners.
Yeah.
So even though it's a preseason or even a regular season game, you got to think about the battle in that. St. Louis knocked out Washington out of the playoffs last year to continue on their plight to winning their first Stanley Cup, Charleston, in 4 tries.
Yep.
So you think about Washington had a year-long celebration led by Captain Alex Ovechkin, who by the time that he retires, Charleston, will be one of the top 5 hockey players in the history of the NHL.
Yeah, he's good.
And no one really knows of the plight of Alex Ovechkin. He is the only player in NHL history to lead the league in scoring 8 consecutive years. Wayne Gretzky never did it. Gordie Howe never did it, Charleston. Some of the greatest players in hockey, but Alexander Ovechkin is the one that holds that record.
Yeah.
And when you think about some of the goals that he has scored some of the most dramatic goals in NHL history.
Yeah.
So I would love to be at that game tonight, Charlton, between the Blues and the Capitals, because it's going to be having the feeling of a regular season game.
Yeah, it's amazing that there's always a crowd, and you wonder how much money people have to go to all these major events in different cities, but it is great when you see that happening. And really, I know they're doing it in Oakland. They're doing it in Oakland like they're going to keep all the 3 teams, but it's not. They're leaving Big C. It's just amazing. But good to see that we're back on the ice in Frozen Pond. What we're going to do is come up on what's called the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some things that are happening. And I tell you, if you ever had a premonition, it means you see things in your mind or in your dream before you see them in reality. But I'm telling you, we did some shows the last couple of years, and it seemed like the next day I see that same show on major networks. And that's amazing. It's not premonition, it's really real. We're going to take the Big C timeout. When we come back, we hope that you'll join us. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back on what's called the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause. And you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker. You can follow Big C Sports on TV. If you have Xfinity, Comcast, just put in Big C Sports Podcast on the iHeartRadio apps. And also the apps that I really love. You can follow Big C Sports by saying Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are going. But as we always encourage people to read, we talked about the Porters yesterday and the Pullman Company that employed a lot of people, but they still had to fight for what they wanted because Good Old Boys decided, if you're not going to ask, I'm not going to give it to you. U.S. Representative Anthony Gonzalez, a former Ohio State football standout, is planning to propose a new national law that gives college athletes the opportunity to make endorsement money. Now, if you're one of those dumb sports programs that don't want to talk about anything other than who won the game, then turn away. Because this is an ex-athlete that actually learned to read. Gonzalez, a Republican from Ohio, Big C, he said he believes the federal government needs to act quickly to avoid potential problems from people who want you to work for free. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Anthony Gonzalez is a former wide receiver at Ohio State, had a short stint with the Indianapolis Colts playing with Peyton Manning as a wide receiver. Now he's turned to politics, Charlton, and as much as people always want to say politics and sports don't mix, this is the former football player who is now a politician in the House of Representatives, Charlton,
Yep.
and proposing this fair play for athletes bill, Charlton, on a national scale.
Yeah.
Because you have to be realistic about it, Charlton. The NCAA is going to need to be able to get out in front of this because it will become an ugly mess. You talk about a split in division. That's what's going to happen. If the NCAA does not adapt this nationally
Yeah.
throughout all 50 states, Charlton, what you're going to have is a break. And what you're going to have is people splintering off, saying that we will create our own, just as you and I discussed last night about, let's bring in a new commissioner. Let's make Jay Billis in charge of this, an attorney who has always talked about this as antitrust, not to pay athletes for the billions of dollars that they generate every year across this country. And people will say, how will you pay guys?
Yeah.
Very easy. The NCAA pays, the college net, all the broadcast networks pay out money to the NCAA.
Yep.
They just don't pay it to the conferences. They pay it through the NCAA. It is the facilitator for all of these teams, Charlton.
Yeah.
So this is something that has to be done. You know, and when the state of Florida talked about introducing legislation yesterday about having it enacted next year in 2019, July of 2019, going to get ahead, make that 2020, July of 2020, excuse me, to get ahead of what California had already done. The government sees that this is something that they need to do, and the NCAA sees that it needs to be done.
Yeah.
There's going to be a snowball effect with this movement, Charlton, as far as passing legislation. Just like when the Supreme Court lifted the ban on gambling across the United States, saying that it was free, that it was legal to do it in all 50 states now.
Yeah.
That Nevada no longer had a chokehold on it, Charlton. The same thing is going to occur after Gavin Newsom signed that bill into law in California. Florida is going to act on it. They will fast track it. And as soon as California and Florida have them fast tracked, Charlton, you're talking about both sides of the country.
Yep.
Now you just have to fill in all the blanks in between. So the federal government needs to act on this to let the NCAA knows that collusion no longer is going to be acceptable.
Yeah.
That they're going to have to share some of these finances with these student athletes. The drawback, as you said, the Ohio State athletic director said, well, only a few of these players can make money off their likeness.
Right.
Okay, the universities make money off of every one of them, Charlton.
Isn't that true?
Even if they're not a star in the program, they're making money off everybody that's on the teams: football, basketball, baseball, track and field, swimming, tennis, hockey, golf, whatever sport you want to name.
Yeah.
They make money off of them. So they can find a way to generate the revenue out to all the student athletes who participate in these sports. But it is going to happen, and it is going to happen within the next year, Charlton, that this becomes a national law that you're going to have to pay student athletes.
You know, it's always a fight. There's nothing, there's even a struggle in birth. In childbirth, most women got to push. Most babies don't just come out willingly. You got to push them out. There's always resistance to anything. And I'm glad it's an athlete. In fact, Gonzalez played high school football in Ohio at St. Ignatius High School in Cleveland, Ohio, one of the top parochial schools in the country, Big C, and went on to Ohio State. And I want to bring up history because it's important that people read. Marcus Garvey talked about that. October 2nd, on this date, in 1850, Congress passed a second Fugitive Slave Act. It was tougher than the first, which believed that it required every American that was a slave person or considered a slave, it required that white Americans turn them in to their owners, or they faced violation of the law and could also be imprisoned or given stiff fines for not taking slaves and returning them to their owners. That was horrendous. But if a slave can do this, what I'm going to read next, it's important that people who have an education can do it too, Big C, because being dumb is not an excuse anymore. You can Google anything. It was 1,500 people, black Americans. In 1850, they jammed the Zion Church called the Great Mass Meeting to free James Hamlet, who was a slave that got away, and he was caught, and they put him in jail. But $800 were raised to the penny by the first 100 of that money. It was donated in one lump sum by a black man for people that he did not even know. Isaac Hollenblatt on October 2nd, 1850. An emissary was dispatched to ransom Hamlet and restore him to his freedom, his family and friends. Within days, Hamlet came home to New York and was found as a hero. These were people who did not know each other. The only identity they had was that they had the same skin color, a lot like the African-American athletes that people are saying, don't give them any money. They should play for a hat and some tennis shoes and a t-shirt, Big C. It's always taken intelligent people to make things happen. It was never done by ignorant people or many of our media brethren that say, we don't want to pay them. They should be happy they got a scholarship. Do you see how it's always taken people who had courage, Big C? Even slaves had courage. If you have a college education, there's no excuse, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, of people having to fight for things in America, it's always come to minorities.
Yeah.
That have to fight for what they feel that they deserve.
Yeah.
And what society has taken away from them, Charlton. And when we think about black people continuously having to fight and search in society just for equality, even back from slavery days, Charlton, that, people have opposed blacks receiving anything of honor in this country, saying it didn't belong to them. And you think about the atrocity of that here it is, American citizens are having to be put through this, Charlton, daily. In America, just to fight for equality and earn a decent living still today in 2019. Student athletes are citizens of this country. And as you talk about, and the Texas quarterback Sam Ehlinger said it earlier in the year. He said there's no company in America that requires their employees to come in and work a 40-hour work week. And do this for 4 years, hoping that they get paid and get a job after the end of that 4 years of that internship. That's what the NCAA has instilled on all its student athletes. They have to work for 4 years of internship in hoping that they can receive a job of pay after that 4 years. And that's the NFL, college football mainly. You think about baseball. Baseball allows kids to be drafted out of high school, under 18 years of age, and join the league, at least in a farm system, but they get a contract, they get paid. Or they can go to college. Even if they get drafted, they're still allowed to go to college. The NBA requires players to go to college for at least 1 year, and that's going to change soon. They're going to go back to out of high school back to the NBA, Charlton, because of the antitrust suits that they have faced. But the NFL has stood fast that you have to spend at least 3 years in college or 3 years beyond your graduation class in high school before they will accept you into employment. So this allows for these universities to get free labor from you. For them to go out and gain the wealth financially because you have to go there and work for them for free in this internship. No place in America, anybody who listens to our show or any other sports show or news broadcast throughout America would feel that it would be unfair, and they wouldn't take that position, that they would go work for the company that they love, that they would have their dream job at, and do a 4-year internship and say, okay, at the end of the 4 years, do I get the position? No one would do that.
No one would do that. And so I just want people, because I hear so many people, it's a personal to me, Big C, because I have grandparents that were born in the sharecropping. So it's personal. It's not something I read. It's something I know about. So to me, the only reason that civil rights ever existed is because people had the right to understand that it's their right. It's a human right not to be suffering. You shouldn't have to beg for what's yours. But if you're dumb, you will be taken advantage of. That's why we have court system. It's so important. People Google the slave bill, because if slaves could fight for their freedom, a college person with an education can too. Slaves couldn't be educated. That's why I don't like dumb people. I don't like passive people. Quit complaining and start using the law to get what you want. Big C, college football. You think about the top 5 scoring teams in college football. LSU, they average 57.8 points a game, and they're not even ranked number 1 in the SEC. Big C, Oklahoma, they average 55.5 points a game. The Ohio State Buckeyes, with the athletic director that thanks them for their service, but they don't want them to have any money. That's crazy, Gene Smith. He'd be ashamed of himself. In fact, he should be fired. Give him a hat and some tennis shoes, Big C. 52.4 points a game. Alabama averages 51.8 points. Penn State averages 50, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when we look at the scoring pace of college football, of those top teams you just named, and I think about that, Charlton, when you said Penn State averaging 50 points a game, all of these teams are averaging over 50 points a game. The national polls don't even have Penn State ranked in the top 10. Yet they're the number 5 scoring team in the country. So I wonder what the pollsters look at when they're thinking about having top teams in the country. That here it is, you got the number 5 scoring team in a Power 5 conference that's undefeated, and they can't even make the top 10 in the country.
Well, maybe if they scored 55 points a game, maybe they'd get up there. I think Notre Dame is ranked higher than Penn State. Doesn't make any sense. And when you think about that, I know you're a defensive guy, so you don't like offensive players anyway. But the top 5 defenses in college football, you think about Wisconsin, they're not even the top team in the Big Ten yet, Big C. Penn State, they give up 7.5 a game. Wisconsin, 7.3. Iowa, 8.5. Ohio State gives up 8.6. Florida gives up 8.8 a game. When you think about those teams with the top defenses, and we know defenses win championships, Florida's not ranked number 1 in the SEC. Ohio State's ranked number 1 in the Big Ten, but not Iowa, which has a better defense on record anyway, but not person to person. And then Penn State, Wisconsin. So defense wins championships. So why is it that teams that have a higher scoring percentage oftentimes considered the best in the country as opposed to the most difficult to score on? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you just mentioned something twice when you mentioned Penn State. I didn't realize Penn State was there offensively and defensively.
Yeah.
I don't know how you keep Penn State out of the top 10 in the country. You said they had the number 2 scoring defense in the country. They had the number 5 scoring offense in the country, Charlton. That right there is an answer to college football to say it's a popularity contest. It's not about the kids on the field. How do you punish the kids at Penn State? Here's Notre Dame with a loss.
Yeah.
And a loss is a loss. There's no such thing as a quality loss. That's like saying Central Florida had a quality loss to Pittsburgh. You lost the damn game. You got an L at the end of your record. You're not perfect. Penn State is perfect. Got one of the top scoring offenses, top scoring defenses in the country. And you can't crack the top 10. You know, Clemson, I think, squeaked by a point against North Carolina, so they've been vulnerable defensively. Notre Dame has lost to Georgia. And they were taken to task by Virginia. And here's teams that have no blemishes, can't even get to where they are.
And if like the immaculate reception with the Oakland Raiders and the Pittsburgh Steelers, the mighty Franco Harris, Frederick Flickle, and then also Terry Bradshaw involved in that, Jack Tatum, of course. There was no sideline. If it was, I missed it. But I didn't see any sideline review on the North Carolina player when the quarterback was hit and lateraled the ball to him. It looked like he got across the orange pylon, but they only showed the rear view. I looked, but I didn't see it. Maybe I didn't see every angle. Did you recall seeing any angle on TV to show if North Carolina actually crossed that orange pylon? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it wasn't about an angle or whether he crossed the pylon or anything like that. It was about the economical impact of that game if Clemson lost. Clemson's been in the playoffs the last 4 years, Charlton. North Carolina is a struggling program trying to get on the right track with Mack Brown. And as I said prior to that game, Mack Brown will hate that he came back to college football after that game. And he really did, Charlton, because here's a guy who sat in the broadcast booth for 5 years. Who analyzed situations like that, who were critical when teams got hosed. Here it is, Mack Brown got hosed in that game, so he was very critical of officials and everything else. But as a good old boy, you have to be quiet because the economics of the ACC is only going to be made by Clemson.
When I was a kid and we got hosed, it was usually somebody spraying you with a water hose, not robbing you with a chance of knocking off a team at that time ranked number in the country. But I think they've slipped in the polls because a little bit of poetic justice. When you think about the top 5 college football coaches on the hot seat, Big C, and Mack Brown won't be on the hot seat even if they go and lose the rest of the games because they challenge number 1 Clemson. Dabo, you think about Mike Bobo of Colorado State. Now, he's a former Georgia offensive coordinator since the beginning of 2018. And Colorado State is only 4-13. And you think about this. 25 of 31 overall in 5 seasons. That is not a good winning percentage, but Colorado State's not a big program, but still going to be on the hot seat. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, he got the job being McElhaney's offensive coordinator down there, Charles. But you go to Colorado State. I mean, there's no reason being in the Mountain West that you cannot win.
Right.
And here it is. You're sub-5. You're 6 games under 500 in 4 years at Colorado State, Charles. I think he's on his last straw, and once this contract runs out.
Well, another good old boy, Chad Morris, Arkansas. The Razorbacks, I remember they played many, many moons ago for national championships, Big C. They lost to San Jose State, and I still think the best player ever at San Jose State is Steve Clarkson, won the 1980 California Raisin Bowl down in Fresno. A lot of quarterbacks still get it coached by him, but the loss was inexcusable for an SEC team. Almost halfway into the second season, the Hogs coach Morris is 4-13 at Arkansas. And last I know, how good does Razorback taste on a barbecue grill? Big C, your thoughts?
You know, it's some very lean swine, Charlton, that get hunted on a regular basis down here in the swamps and stuff.
Yeah.
We enjoy them, but I mean, very vicious animal, but the Razorbacks at Arkansas have not been that vicious on the football field.
Yeah, not too vicious. Now, here's another coach, Tony Sanchez at UNLV. Now, there's no reckoning coming for UNLV. Sanchez, a former high school coach at National Power, Bishop Gorman out of Las Vegas. Hasn't panned out so far. He's 17 and 35 overall. And I believe this is the same Sanchez. He was actually on the De La Salle coaching staff many moons ago under the great coach Bob Ladouceur in Northern California before he went to Bishop Gorman. But if you're at Bishop Gorman, like you talked about, the culling, where you can go get the best players out of Nevada. In fact, there were players that lived in California that ended up playing at Bishop Gorman for high school football. UNLV doesn't have the same pull for college. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, Gonzalez reminds me a lot of Jerry Faust, who coached back in Notre Dame during the early 80s, Charlton, when he left high school there, Mola High School in Cincinnati, and went to Notre Dame. He felt was his dream job.
Yeah.
The difference in coaching college football versus high school football, as you said, you could take some elite high school players, put them together, and beat up on the normal kids in the high schools, Charlton. But in college, you got to play college kids every week. And Las Vegas has always been a tough place to draw kids to, just like what you have in that Los Angeles area.
Yeah.
You don't have an on-campus stadium, which is very unappealing to a lot of kids, Charlton, when they want to be seen on the college football landscape.
Yeah, and at nighttime when you're in Vegas, you want to go to the Strip or do you want to go out and drive down to that stadium? It's amazing. I don't know if the Raiders will suffer the same fate. Derek Mason, Vanderbilt, a great university, and he was hired because of his defensive accomplishments at the University of Stanford. But he has never finished any campaign with a winning record during his previous 4 seasons. And I know we talk about getting kids education. I doubt if anyone can say that kids at Vanderbilt do not get a great education just like Stanford, but it still is all about winning. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you're playing in the tough SEC down at Vanderbilt, so you have to be qualified academically before you can take an athletic scholarship, which puts a lot of limitations on Mason and his program there, Charlton. He's competing against the big boys who are going to get the elitist athletes in that conference. They play in a very small stadium in Vanderbilt, I believe about 42 to 47,000 on-campus seats in that stadium versus stadiums in the SEC that are more than twice the size of what he has. So they don't have the draw appeal, Charlton, nor can they get the elite athletes.
Yeah, it's always fair in love and war, but we know, and I love what's going on with the bright minds in sports, Big C. Really appreciating Gavin Newsom, also the gentleman out of Florida, and even the New York area, that they're just doing what's right. If you do what's right, then you can have clean hands. Being transparent makes it fair. And it's just good to see, after reading up on black history so much and not assuming that we got free because people prayed enough, the church did not free black Americans. It was the courts. Now people went to church to organize, but it's the courts that freed people. And I think, and I want your opinion, sometimes in African American community, we're told to pray. I have some friends who are white and atheists, and they say, how's that Jesus stuff working out for you? Because sometimes people just know that the law has nothing to do with the church. That's why there's separation of church and state. But as a lot of coaches will have their kids kneel and pray after a game. I think the great late Reggie White did a lot of that to become well known. He would get NFL players together, and they would pray at midfield after a game. But not one prayer has changed the law, Big C. It's taken lawyers to change the law. And I'm glad that we have lawyers who get involved with this pay for play and getting people the chance to earn money on their intelligence and intellectual property, because for too long, black Americans who did not have power were told to pray and ask God for help. But it's always been the law, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's always been the law, you know, and as you talk about that, and I think about what African Americans have had to go through in this country, just on Saturday, Charlton, down in Galveston, Texas, a police officer arrested an African-American man on a misdemeanor charge of trespassing, Charlton.
Wow.
This officer, handcuffed this man, Charlton. This officer was going by horseback. Now, they could have transported this man by car. But the officer, Charlton, riding horseback, took a rope and put on this man, Charlton, and marched him down the street to the jail. Just like in slavery days, Charlton. Here it is in 2019. And in Galveston, Texas, This went viral through all the news outlets.
Wow.
That a white police officer felt that it was proper to denigrate an African-American male. Now, remember, we just had a white officer that killed a black man in Texas in his apartment earlier this year, Charlton.
Yeah.
And she was convicted.
Yeah.
For killing a black man in his own home when she went to his home and shot him.
Yeah.
While he was in there relaxing.
Yeah.
This horrific event that occurred in Galveston, Texas, Charlton, that a police officer is denigrating American, a grown man, for misdemeanor trespassing, Charlton.
Wow.
Arrest him, handcuffed him, tied a rope to him, and marched him down the hot street of Galveston, Texas on Saturday, Charlton, to the jail. This went viral. People videotaping this, Charlton. We have not grown as a society in America because people say, well, that's one bad apple. Hell no, it's just people having power, doing what they want to do because they're white.
Yeah.
Think about the outcry from white society if there's been a black officer with a rope around a white person leading them down the street, Charlton.
Yeah.
You wouldn't do that to a dog, but yet they do it to a black man, and they feel that they have the right to do that, and they're protected under the oath of the law, Charlton.
Yeah.
Eric Gardner was killed in New York a few years ago by police officers because he was selling cigarettes.
Yeah.
They choked him to death. It took them 3 years to find the police officer who choked the man to death on videotape.
Wow.
Now we have an officer, a white officer, parading a black man down the main street in an American city, Galveston, Texas, on horseback with a rope tied to him down the street.
Wow. It's horrible, and that's why the law has to get in. And I understand prayer. I grew up in a Christian home, but sometimes it's amazing how if you go to court, you get things done sooner than if you're praying. So I want people to understand the slaves taught us something. Just because we have an education, don't think we don't need the courts. Even that study you talked about, and I know we talk about sports and politics, but it's real. Because the lady, the officer in Dallas, I think she was just given 10 years for the murder of that gentleman in his own apartment, Big C. And I guess she thought it was her own place. I don't know how that could be the case at all. But that goes 10 years. It's still the fact the courts will decide what the courts want to do. But they didn't go to church and pray for justice. They went to court. And they got some justice. The man's life is over, unfortunately. That's horrible. But it just tells all of us, you got to always know where you are. You got to know the law. That's part of it. Big C, I want to just close out a little bit on covering. I know we got the baseball games happening tonight. WNBA, that's still going along strong. So congratulations to the women doing their thing. And I look at football as we have this game coming up on Thursday with the LA Rams going into Seattle to play the Seahawks. And it's a bigger game than people might think, because both teams right now, they got to push to keep up with the 49ers. In the NFL, the AFC, in the East, you have New England at first place at 4-0, followed by Buffalo, 3-1. The Jets, 0-3. Miami's 0-4. Give me your feeling on how you think those teams are playing in the AFC East, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the New England Patriots are always going to be the class of the AFC East. This team is undefeated 4 games into the season, Charlton. They will undoubtedly have the best defense in football. They're going to need a new kicker. They put their kicker, Gostowski, on the IL today, Charlton, because he's going to have hip surgery.
Yeah.
Everybody says everything goes through Tom Brady in New England. No, everything goes through the defense of Bill Belichick in New England.
Yeah, it does, basically. In the South, you have Houston 2-2, Indianapolis 2-2, Jacksonville 2-2. Tennessee is 2-2. Those sound like lotto numbers, Big C. They're all twos, Big C. Your thoughts?
Everyone playing the double deuces in that division. Talking right now, I have to look at Jacksonville at being the hottest team in that division. I think they found something magical in Gunnar Minshew at quarterback, because he can force the defense off that 8-man box, Charlton, that have held Leonard Fournette in check for the past couple of years. Now that they have a quarterback who is throwing at a high rate of efficiency, completing 75% of his passes, you saw Leonard Fournette be the benefactor of that last week with 225 yards on the ground, his best game as a pro. And that defense that they have, led by Calais Campbell on the defensive line, Charlton, I think they're going to be a tough out for everybody in that division.
In the North, you have Cleveland 2-2, Baltimore is 2-2, Pittsburgh 1-3, and Cincinnati's 0-4. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you take a look at Pittsburgh. This was a team that's still struggling at quarterback. They're only one game out of first place in that division now. You talked about 2-2 and 2-2 with Baltimore and Cleveland.
Yeah.
But Pittsburgh is only one game out of it. Cincinnati, once again, going to have to wait for next year.
It's always next year in Cincinnati, Big C. And then you have the West, Kansas City 4-0, Oakland 2-2, the LA Chargers 2-2, and mighty Denver's 0-4, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, from top to bottom, you got 4-0 and 0-4 when you look at that division. There's no challenger in the West for the Kansas City Chiefs, Charlton. This is a miraculous offensive team. The defense is trying to get better, but as long as you got Patty Mahomes playing quarterback there in Kansas City, there's no chance that you're going to catch them.
That's funny. Before we get over to the NFC, you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, worldwide on the #1 podcast network in the universe, an iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker. If you have a TV set in your home, you can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast Television. The apps that I really love are by Google and Alexa. You can Google it. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the growth that we're having with Big C Sports and look forward to more. Big C, as we get over to the National Football Conference known as the NFC, we look at some of the rankings. Dallas 3-1, Philadelphia 2-2, the Giants are 2-2, and the Redskins are 0-4. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, there's a log jam in the middle of the pack of that division. Dallas still has a one-game lead over the Giants in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is getting healthy. Dallas is going to have to find a way to rebound after that tough loss against the Saints because the Eagles are nipping at their heels.
Yeah, that's a good conference. Big C, the South, New Orleans 3-1, Tampa Bay's 2-2, Carolina's 2-2, Atlanta, Matt Ryan 1-3. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Falcons need to find a way to utilize Julio Jones.
Yeah.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they could easily be 3-1 at that point. They gave away a game to the New York Giants. You look at the New Orleans Saints, everybody said they would be happy with Drew Brees out if they could just go 500.
Yeah.
They may not lose a game even with Drew Brees out. Teddy Bridgewater can get it done at the pivot.
He's a real deal. Last two in the NFC North, Green Bay 3-1, Chicago 3-1, Detroit 3-1, Minnesota with the great Kirk Cousins 2-2. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Kirk Cousins, is an incapable quarterback in the NFL. As much as people want to think that he's a franchise quarterback, no, he has a franchise salary. When I look at the rest of that division, Chicago got better at quarterback when Mitch Trubisky went down. Aaron Rodgers has been subpar as the start of this season thus far. The Detroit Lions have surprised a few people.
Yeah, they really have. Big C in the West. San Francisco's 3-0. Seattle's 3-1. The Rams are 3-1. Big game coming up Thursday. And Arizona's 0-3. Big C, your thoughts?
Who would have thought at this point of the season that the 49ers would be considered the best team in the NFC West with the Rams having gone to the Super Bowl last year? Seattle is right there in the thick of things. They lost a tough one to the New Orleans Saints at home. But they're going to play the Rams this week, Charlton, and one of those teams is going to find themselves in third place in the division.
Well, we love you in Canada, Canadian Football League in the East Division. Hamilton's 11-3, Montreal 7-6, Ottawa's 3-11, followed by Toronto at 2-10. In the West, Calgary Stampeders are 9-4, Saskatchewan 9-4, Winnipeg 9-5, Edmonton 7-7, and the BC Lions are 4-10. We do it all on Big C Sports. A lot of great baseball happening. Oakland, celebrate hard because it might be the last time you celebrate a playoff team in the East Bay. Big C. Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C. What are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I'm looking forward to Game 3 of the WNBA Finals. The Connecticut Sun even up the series against the Washington Mystics 1-1, Charlton, but the Mystics may be without their star center, Elena Deladonna, who has a herniated disc in her back, and they're going to be a tough challenge for them to even compete for the rest of the WNBA Finals.
Well, that is amazing sports going on. It's always a shame when somebody gets hurt, but you got to play through it. Everyone, please, Google the Fugitive Slave Bill. If slaves could fight for their rights, if you have even a little bit of education, you can too. You can find out more every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C, and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.